What is up, guys? It's Jerry Spalding here, and today I'm going to be giving you a video that I've been wanting to make for a little while now. I've been thinking about doing it, but I did make a video not too long ago, but it was a decent amount of time ago now, on how to prepare for a dollar collapse. So I figured that it's been enough time though to make another video similar to that, and this is going to be it's pretty interesting actually, because while I was thinking of this, actually yesterday I made a video on asking you what your suggestions are for videos you'd like to see in the future, and somebody actually suggested that I do a video on the upcoming dollar collapse. So I was like, well, I already have a video on that, so I guess it'll have to be the economic collapse. And sorry about that, but this video is going to be asking you basically, are you prepared for an economic collapse? And of course, I'm not just going to ask that question. I'm going to explain how, at least I personally believe, is a good way to be prepared for it. Now, please note that I am not saying that the U.S. is. Hold on. I have two notes for you. First of all, this is referring to people living in the United States. As for other countries, I'm a United States citizen myself here, so I really don't know as much about other countries' economies, and not only that, but I wouldn't want to just report on or talk about a country I don't even live in. But also another note here is that I'm not saying that necessarily the U.S. Is going to collapse their economy, but it's been pretty unstable for a long time now due to how much not only how much debt we have, but a lot of different factors go into it. And so you probably are thinking one of two things now: either A, oh wow, I should be really worried for this economic collapse, or something like, well, this is impossible. And for those of you who are thinking that, well, if you are really worried, rest assured, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen or not. It depends on what president we have, of course, as well as a number of other factors. I'm just saying it is a great possibility. And those of you who don't think it's possible at all, well, let me explain to you here just a few things. First of all, the U.S. is a very big country, as you probably know. It has one of the largest land masses out of any country. In fact, has the second largest land mass right behind Russia, and the third largest population behind China and India. Therefore, the government had a lot of area to control and a lot of people to rule over, or I guess that's a kind of a harsh word. It's a lot of people to look over, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, though, this probably makes you think, oh, well, this country is pretty much immune to falling, right? There's no way that the entire economy, if I could pronounce words here, could collapse of this country with how big it is. Well, let's just look at another country, and this is kind of an old example here for you, but what about Rome? Did anyone think that country, or I'm sorry, that empire, I should say, was going to collapse? No. I'm pretty sure that nobody thought that an empire that had like 20% of the world's population at one point, or something insane like that, could have fallen. I mean, it was a huge empire, but that was basically the reason that it ended up falling, was just because of how big it was. And of course you're probably thinking, well, it's because of foreign invaders. The U.S. isn't necessarily going to get attacked, and it has an extremely strong defense and a very high military budget if it does. This is true, but Rome's, not only its problems were rooted in the fact that people were invading. That was what ended up ultimately failing them, but they would have been able to survive the attacks had they not had a few other problems, which is one of them was, of course, changing rulers rapidly, because rulers are constantly killing each other to get in and become the dictator of Rome, or whatever you want to call the position. Pretty sure it was a dictator at that point. And not only that, but another problem they had, and here's one that the U.S. also experiences, to make it a little bit more relatable for you, was money. And I'm not just talking about debt or something. No, I'm talking about they were running out of money, and you know what they resorted to? They resorted to stop making coins out of silver and gold, and start using cheap materials like copper, tin, aluminum, zinc. Now, do any of those things sound familiar to you? Do any of them ring a bell? Because I'm pretty sure in 1964, the U.S. experienced its last year of silver coins, and in 1965 they stopped being minted. Of course, with the exception of the Kennedy half, which is still 40% silver, only up until 1969 though. So 1969 officially was the last year that any silver coins were minted. Now, this of course means that the U.S. has done exactly the same thing that Rome did. And now I understand silver is a lot more expensive as well as gold now, and it's more expensive to make currency out of, the silver and gold, especially gold, of course, was they stopped making gold coins a lot earlier than they did silver ones. But my point is that now we're using those same cheap materials that Rome used that made their money worthless. And look at our money; it's not exactly at the highest point it's ever been, and it's only worth basically its value depends on how much of it's in circulation, but also how much it's worth in terms of melt value. And if you can't get your money's worth of metal out of the coin that you have, then who's to say it's worth anything? And of course the same rules apply to dollars, which were never silver or gold or anything, but that is kind of a whole really big situation on its own to talk about. But anyway, here you can see now that that was one of the big problems of Rome, and not to say that they experienced all the same problems that the U.S. is, but that was certainly one that's very similar between the two countries. And if you think, well, wait, this couldn't happen today, could it? I understand that this was a big problem then, with foreign invaders and all these problems combining together, but that was just a combination of factors, and this couldn't happen today. Well, not even too long ago, just months ago actually, over the summer I believe it was, of 2015, look what happened to Greece. Their economy completely fell apart. And do you think that everyone was just sitting around saying, oh, well, the economy's collapsed, let's go take a walk? No. There was a lot of problems that happened, and this was very recently, like I was saying. People were rioting, there was probably a lot of laws being broken, well, definitely a lot of laws being broken. No, there's no probably about it. People were stealing, killing each other, basically, over the basic necessities. This is how bad it's got in certain parts of the country. And I'm not sure the exact situation of Greece at the moment. I know that they are still very much struggling, though. And I'm pretty sure at one point they didn't even have any money left in their banks across the entire country. And people weren't allowed to enter or exit. It was basically under lockdown, and they didn't really have any money, of course, to fund the country. So, how long is that going to last when you can't pay anyone who's securing the country and keeping it under lockdown? But anyway, yeah, so you could tell that was a pretty big problem recently. Now, of course, Greece is a much smaller country than the U.S., and they had some problems leading up to it. But it's not like it's never happened in the U.S. before. Now, I'm not saying the entire economy collapsed like this, but we've come pretty close. What about during the Great Depression? Do you think that, it was just an easy time then? Because I'm pretty sure most of you know what the Great Depression is, or was, and what occurred during it. And you probably know that most people had a couple of nickels on them at best, and there was very few people who were wealthy at that point, and there was very little money to be made because no money could be spent. Now, of course, we were pulled through the situation by a very good president, FDR, who served up until World War II actually, and pulled us through that as well. So he was a very good president. But who's to say we're gonna have a good one now? With the presidents who are in the running, Donald Trump, for example, Hillary Clinton, they clearly don't know how to run a country. And you could say, well, Donald Trump's very wealthy, so he's gonna get a lot of money for the U.S., right? Well, you have to remember that he declared bankruptcy several times in his life. And also, he called $1 million a small loan. So, I mean, clearly he doesn't know too much about money in that sense. He might be worth billions now, but when you plan on building a wall that's going to cost trillions of dollars, which you're certainly not going to be able to force Mexico to pay for, you're going to start to have some problems. And, with all the comments he's made, I don't know necessarily if he's going to be able to win the presidency. He is leading for the Republicans as we speak, but who's to say, he's not going to become president? And who's to say he'd be able to pull us through an economic collapse? But anyway, all that aside, another good relevant example here for you was what about in 2008 when the stock market crashed? When people who went from billionaires to being over $1 billion in debt in a matter of mere seconds, faster than they could ever spend that much money. People went from sometimes double-digit billions, a few people even, to having nothing at all. So that was pretty recent. That's something we're still recovering from and still feeling the effects of. And of course, we've been up since then, but when that happened, forget it. I mean, the price of everything crashed, and looking at how low silver and gold and oil prices are and, things like that, it makes you wonder, well, are we about to experience another economic collapse? Or, what's going to happen next? So, this video, of course, is not on the exact probability of it, but I just wanted to clear it up that it is very plausible at this point, and only the future will tell what's going to happen. But now, let me ask that question again. Are you prepared for an economic collapse? Now, hopefully at this point you're convinced that it is something that you at least need to consider, and it is something you should be prepared for. Now, in this situation, there's a few things you're going to want to do, and these are probably things you've heard before, but I'm going to say what I think on them. And anyway, here we go. Now, one thing you're going to want to have is some weapons, and this, of course, is because there's going to be a lot of rioting going on, and there's going to be a lot of looting going on of people's homes if a complete economic collapse happens. And money's worth nothing. The government can't even get the situation under control. The government will start basically rebelling against well, not even just the government against itself, but the different branches won't be in checks. The system of checks and balances will completely collapse, and one branch might do this, which will mess up another branch, and they'll start basically attacking each other. The military certainly isn't going to be funded anymore, and then of course another country could come in at this point once we're weak like this, just like in Rome, and completely take us out, and this could result in the whole country collapsing. As a result of the economic collapse, and you're going to have a lot of people, like I was saying, stealing stuff. The Constitution will be completely gone, not even considered like something worth regarding anymore. And so you are going to want to have some weaponry ready. I'm not saying have an entire malicious arsenal on your hands or something, but just something small and concealed, so that when you go out, people, if they do try to mess with you, something you can pull out real fast and hold people off. As well as just something to keep yourself protected, especially in your own home. Now, another thing you're going to have is some silver on you. And gold, of course, is good too, but with how valuable gold really is, silver being much less valuable can often be bought for under melt right now, even with how low the price is. And what I'm saying silver, there's a few types you're going to have. Bullion is good for large purchases you'd be making, because silver, of course, will become money. And now, I'm not saying, buy fractional silver here, but what I am saying for smaller purchases is that you should buy junk silver, your constitutional silver. So while money might not be worth anything, the silver inside of it still is. And therefore, you can buy, if you're going, let's say, grocery shopping, you're going to go out with your silver coins to buy some groceries with them. And you don't want to have to give somebody a 10-ounce bar, because generally they're not going to have change for you. They're just going to take this much worth of groceries, as opposed to giving you change back. So you're going to want to have some smaller silver, like silver dimes and quarters and that type of thing, nickels and everything, so that you can make smaller purchases. They'll act as, basically the change, like they already are acting as in terms of silver this time. And they'll have their values, of course, are all based on their denomination. Like a dime's worth of about 1/10 as much as $1, and etc. And both in silver and melt value, as well as what they're worth right now. So it won't be too difficult to calculate. You won't have your computer to help you out, or smartphone, or whatever you're using anymore, because generally I'm pretty much guaranteeing that the internet's going to be out everywhere, and as well as phones, so you're not going to really call anyone. And this brings me up to my next thing, which means you're going to want some walkie-talkies on you, because they don't run on any phone lines. They're completely independent of those and only dependent on each other. They basically cast out their own lines, and therefore you can communicate with other people, and it might not be from hundreds of miles away like you would be able to with a cell phone, but at least from a decent enough distance to be able to talk to other people and stay in touch with them, know where other people are. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you want to consider getting. Another thing you might want to consider is getting some supplies to secure your home. I'm talking about some boards, things like that, to board up any windows so people can't break in. Make sure you get a good lock on your door, that type of thing, so your home is basically prepared for what you would like for a zombie apocalypse, because a lot of people are going to be turning into zombies without the government, basically keeping everything in order, you know, they're going to be, you know, going around and acting like what a zombie would during this type of situation. So definitely make sure your house is protected. And yeah, I know this video is kind of a depressing one, if you will, because, you know, no one wants to think that their entire country is going to collapse. I certainly don't like to think it. But like I was saying before, it is very plausible. So I do hope you enjoyed the video, and that is it for now. Peace, love, and much respect.